basically, you've had a few trips to Leicester recently that has seemed to have settled down somewhat, but there are still some underlying tones that need to be ironed out. Can you give us the latest on that, please?
Yes, the hostility and the rank hatred that sort of flooded through Leicester, that seems to have subsided. It's almost as though a tide of anti-Hindu sentiment and violence against Hindus washed into Leicester. And now that that tide has gone out, people are looking at the debris, they're looking at what's been considering what damage has been done and what work now has to be done to patch things up again. But more importantly, I get a sense that the community is not willing to go back to the status quo as it was. There are a lot of small bubbling things under the surface, and there is now a need that the community, I think, is expressing to start to consider, why is it that this happened? Why this sudden conflagration appeared? You know, so the community is reflecting. It's conducting reviews. Here at Chitti Media, you'll be covering a few of those, I know, so thank you for that. And we're having an online public inquiry on Sunday, the 2nd of October at hinducampaigns.com, and so people will be able to join that as well. So there's a lot of scrutiny now. And it's interesting that one of the things I noticed is that we still have a very repressed atmosphere. It's almost as though in the past, the Garba preparations, the functions, the gatherings in the halls, they would be ebullient and they would be full of energy and light. But instead of 1,000 people coming, there are a few hundred people coming for training and for practice and everything else. I had a chat with somebody only this morning who's in Leicester, and she was kind enough to share with me that she'd been to their local community hall, and there were only 15 people there. And so there is still that, shall we say, unease, and that has to be dispelled. And that's going to take a lot of effort. I can't see how that unease will disappear when you consider the almost feral hatred that we saw on the faces and in the mouths of many of those boys who were attacking the Hindus. Yes. There was, it was almost as though they had forgotten that we're human beings. That, you know, that sense of disconnectedness from another human being, that has been revealed now. We saw it in Leicester. We saw it in Smethwick outside that temple, where those elderly people were just inside shell-shocked at why they were being targeted with so much hatred. Yes. So that will take a long time to heal. But there is a degree of settlement. There is a degree of peace returning, even though most people are still a bit dazed. A lot of work to be done there in Leicester and also in Smethwick. And our community leaders, which is a strange term. I think we're even going to scrutinize, what does that mean, community leader? You know, we've had many speeches that have been made by people who ostensibly occupy the position, many of them unelected, of community leader. But in this day and age, it's not enough just to be in charge of a small temple and perhaps know scripture, and then feel that you have the authority and the ability to be able to step forward into such a toxic situation and start to speak in a manner which hopefully is intended to move the whole conversation forward. And so even this notion of community leaders, we're going to have to give it some attention and scrutinize it. Yes, but on the whole, things are moving in the right direction.
Yes, because many other religious institutes, their community leaders are also very politically engaged, and that's something that's very much lacking in the Hindu temples. They're not politically aware of what's happening, the undertones of the responsibility that they've got. It's more than just dealing with the temple, it is society in general and fitting in with the British society and of all the animosity that's now being targeted towards Hindus. There's a lot of Hindu hatred going on around, and we're seeing it from various directions. So yeah, you make a really valid point, Bandit. Community leaders have a lot more responsibility than they believe they have.
I think you're absolutely right in that, and it's a sign of the times, Saloji. As a community, we instinctively are a collaborative civilization. You know, wherever we go, we seek to work with people and with systems for the benefit of everybody. You know, Vasudeva Kutumbakam is commonly touted, and Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. You know, may we have good things for everybody. So these are our civilizational epithets, they're the foundational statements for our civilization. But how do you then adjust to an environment which is, one, hostile, and so hostile as to be toxic, and secondly, where you're dealing with people whose intention is not to be collaborative?
Yes.
These are the questions that those who lead our communities are now going to ask. And from one perspective, although there was a lot of violence, there was a lot of hatred, and many police officers were unbelievably very regretful, were injured, and many members of our community were also injured. Fortunately, there were no fatalities. Had there been any fatalities, then I think we'd be in a totally different world and we would be in a totally different situation. But the situation as it now seems to be moving forward, we have been given a window of opportunity. We've been given a window of opportunity to genuinely and with a critical eye scrutinize every aspect of our life in these countries. We need to recognize that we do need to protect ourselves.
Yes.
We do need to be aware of who it is whose interests do not lie with us. And in fact, even those persons where our shall we say, suffering actually serves their interests. We need to be able to identify these groups and work out how to engage with them. And one of the things I would say, though, and I'm sure you've picked this up, is that we now have a great opportunity to scrutinize the manner in which the background indigenous systems, civilizations, sectors have actually responded to this. So we have seen unbelievably unpleasant commentary in so many newspapers. It's remarkable. There have been times when we have tried to get a story into the mainstream, into the BBC, into the Guardian, and they give us such a high bar. Oh no, we have to have balance, we have to have evidence, etc., etc., etc. And yet when you look at the many of the reports that have come out, and you look at the bar that has been applied, there is no evidence for probably 80 to 90% of the Hindu-phobic content that was pushed through the mainstream media. And so we need to scrutinize this and let's hold them to account. So that's a good thing that has emerged. I think many more people are now going to think, many more people from the British population are now going to think, hang on a moment, what's going on here? On the one hand, we have all of these terrible news reports of RSS, BJP, fascism, Hindutva, Modi, and everything else. And on the other hand, we don't have any evidence of it. In fact, in the United Nations, there have been so many nations who have complimented Prime Minister Modi, the BJP, and thanked them on the floor of the General Assembly for the support that they got during COVID times and things like this. And that's a cognitive dissonance which is now becoming apparent. So many more questions, lots of answers coming up, but we do need to keep engaged with this issue. What we mustn't do is settle back into a comfortable apathy and allow it to continue, because if we do that, the opportunities and lessons that can be learned now will be lost to us. And not only will they be lost, we will be subjected to such hatred again in the future, and it may be that next time it's a lot worse.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.